Syngenta Crop Protection Canada and C&M Seeds present the Wheat School on realagriculture.com.
Well, that's a good question. A lot of people are asking, like I still haven't got all my seeding done. When is kind of the drop dead date for seeding wheat? And it really depends on where you are on the prairies. And I always like to look at, okay, how much heat do we need to grow spring wheat? And it's around between 15 and 1600 growing degree days. That's the amount of heat we actually need. And so then what is the probability of having that amount of heat between now, beginning of June, and the potentially when your killing frost would actually occur? So if we just took an example across Alberta, for example, we look at Bow Island in the brown soil zone, Lethbridge in the dark brown soil zone, we take Three Hills in the thin black soil zone, Lacombe is in the black soil zone, then north of Edmonton where we have a weather site at the Crop Diversification Center North. If we just look at all those 5 sites, and then look at what is the potential for having 1600 growing degree days or more. It really depends on where you are. So Bow Island, between now and the date of, our average killing frost in Lethbridge and Bow Island is usually around September 21st. So we have about, we could actually, theoretically we should get long-term averages. We have about 1900 growing degree days at Bow Island, about 1800 at Lethbridge. When you get to Three Hills and Lacombe, it's around 1600, and then when you get north of Edmonton, you're at closer to 1500. So as you go north, the answer would be no. On June 2nd, should you be seeding wheat, I'd say your risk is way too high in the Edmonton area. Come down to, say, Lacombe or Three Hills, you're kind of right on the money. You're right at the drop dead date. But what happens if we have a cooler than normal summer, or if we have an earlier than normal frost, then your risks are relatively high. So I probably wouldn't recommend it. On June 2nd for the thin black and black soil zones, I really wouldn't recommend it. But in southern Alberta, it's a little different story. If we need 1600 growing degree days, well, we've got 1800 at Lethbridge and we've got 1900 at Bow Island. So I'd say, yeah, if you can get your wheat seed in that first few days of June, yes, you could do it. And probabilities are you could get away with it. But then if you back that off to, say, June 10th, well, now we've lost another at least 150 degree days of heat. Then it's getting pretty risky. So I would say in southern Alberta, probably June 10th would be our drop dead date, and accept the fact that on the 10th of June, your risks are going to be relatively high, but you could do it and get away with it if we have a normal growing season. In terms of overall management, I would say that you want to get that wheat in as quickly as possible. Seed relatively shallow. There's no point in seeding deep because you want that crop germinating out of the ground as fast as you can. Still stick with fairly good fertility. I'd definitely be putting some phosphate with the seed. Things are still relatively cool, and you want that crop to be getting off to a good start. And then just watching weed control. But then it's pretty much out of your hands. It's really Mother Nature and how much heat are we going to get. And we have to recognize if we do seed wheat, our yield potential is not going to be that great. We've lost a lot of our yield potential. In less than 3 weeks, our days are going to be getting shorter. And the other factor we have to keep in mind is that when wheat is flowering and filling, that's going to be in late July and into August. That's when we tend to be the hottest and the driest. So again, that's going to hurt our yield potential. And also, we tend to have our worst insect and disease problems later in the season. And so the later you seed, the more prone you're going to be to these other risks as well. So you may have to really watch if it's a wetter, cooler summer. You might have to be looking at maybe doing a fungicide application. Hopefully not, but that's a possibility. And then just keeping an eye on insects as well. Well, to be honest, logic might say, well, maybe I'll just cut back a little bit on seeding rates. But then if you do, you're going to get more tillering. The more tillers you have, then that's going to delay maturity. So I'd actually be using the upper end of the seeding rate for your area just to get as uniform a stand as possible. That would also tend to reduce tillers and have result in a more uniform crop and hopefully more uniform, quicker maturity as well. It's always really tough, but what I would actually suggest if you seed spring wheat on today, June 2nd, versus on May 2nd, we've probably lost about 30% of our yield potential. And it can even be higher than that depending on the season we have. But I would expect if you'd be looking at around about a 30% reduction in your yield potential with spring wheat. And that's if you're lucky to get it off. But we have to consider, why do we have lower yields? And for later seeded crops, and just the simple reason is that in 3 weeks from now, our days are going to start to get shorter, so we're going to be able, the opportunity to capture sun is reduced. Another major factor is that that crop is going to be growing more during July and August, when we tend to be hotter and drier, so that's tougher on the crop, and it's going to reduce our yield potential. Plus, when we have disease move in, like for example stripe rust or something like that, the further advanced the crop is when that disease moves in, the better off the crop can tolerate it. But the younger the crop is, or the earlier the growth stages that disease moves in, then the tougher that is going to be on yield potential, and same for insects and competitive ability with weeds. There's just a number of different factors that kind of come to play that all sort of interact and reduce yield potential the later we seed.